Very sadly, there is also, however, Islamist persecution of Christians in Europe, and I just filed a blog to the Spectator magazine on this very subject, actually, and at the moment we are witnessing an average of 2 attacks per day.
What kind of attacks?
On churches in France.
Right, well, I was going to ask you about this, because this seems to be one of the great, unreported things that's happening. But a rather large, I don't think it was a cathedral, it was a big church recently, went up, it was the 40th in flames, 40th in 2 years. Are you saying that this is actually Islamist activity?
Yes, a small amount of it comes from the hard left, which also in France makes common cause with hardline Islamists. But most of it, sadly, is coming from, let me stress, the vast majority of Muslims have no truck whatsoever with violent extremism. Although one could hope that more would be done within the Muslim community to silence the extremists, because they are growing in number and the desecrations are extraordinary, really. I mean, we know of the priest murdered at the altar some years ago. You get a lot of defacement of statues of a particularly sinister kind. You get knives being stuck through the throat of statues of the Virgin Mary. You get a great deal of graffiti on the walls of churches with slogans like, submit to Allah or else, or abandon your idolatry. Now, the supreme irony of all this is that classical Islam has always said, first of all, it views Jews and Christians as people of the book, and therefore standing within close to the center of a series of concentric circles, with other faiths being, like Hinduism, being considered to be further out. And also in traditional Islamic jurisprudence, the teaching has always been firmly, if you as a Muslim reside in a non-Muslim society, if it's a society, mainly populated by Christians or adherents of another faith tradition, then you jolly well go along with the mores of the host society.
Yes, until you are in the majority.
Yes.
Until you are in the majority, then everything changes.
Yes.
But that is quite clear. They're quite clear about
But
that.
if I could just finish the point, because I think that this does get overlooked far too much. People say sometimes, oh, Islam is backward and it needs a reformation. I would say no. Islam has been having a reformation in the form of Salafism ever since the 18th century. And the results have been as blood-soaked as the European Reformation. What Islam really needs is a rediscovery of its sophisticated roots. Islam civilizationally was ahead of the Christian world for the first half of the Islamic era. It was only really with the Renaissance and the conquest of America that the Christian world really started to bounce back, and then for other reasons, the Muslim world went into decline intellectually and in other respects. But what these Salafists do is to leapfrog many centuries of careful reflection. I think it's Al-Ghazali, the renowned medieval Islamic thinker, who said Islamic jurisprudence is 1/10 text and 9/10 context. In other words, it's no use either Muslim fundamentalists or their secular opponents saying, but it says this, and this terrible thing in the Quran, because these passages have been viewed differently at different times. I mean, when all is said and done, Peter, Islam is, I mean, it is a worldlier religion in the sense that it has a more martial understanding of things. Both faiths are saturated in the language of victory, but whereas in Christianity the emphasis is on, in Islam the emphasis is on victory in the world. In Christianity the emphasis is on victory over the world. Nevertheless, there are plenty of resources within Islam, if properly deployed, to enable a more convivial relationship than we often have now. But they need to be brought out.
Yes, I mean, I would say to that, for all I know, yes, basically this is a relative minority interpretation of Islam, all the things you just said, but in a way it's irrelevant, it seems to me, because they are not the dynamic, they are not making, progress. It is the other sort of approach to Islam, if you want. One could call it a literal approach to whatever, to the Quran. But that is actually what has got the wind in its sails. That is the dynamic. And you can go on and on about sort of all the different sort of more moderate interpretations. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Surely. I mean, when you have 40 churches being burnt down.
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, that the culprits obviously need to be brought to book over that. I suppose I'm not very hopeful in the near term